If you've ever looked at your life and felt quietly embarrassed by how many things you started but never finished, you might not have a focus problem. Your brain might actually be wired differently, and in the next decade, this type of mind may become one of the most valuable in the world. But there's a reason nobody explains this. Because people who think across many domains become extremely difficult to control. And systems don't like minds they can't predict. So instead of explaining how this kind of mind works, society gives you labels: scattered, unfocused, dilettante. You've heard the phrase before, jack of all trades, master of none. But almost nobody quotes the full line. Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. That second half quietly disappeared. And that wasn't an accident, because a person who believes they're broken is easier to manage than a person who understands their advantage. Psychologists have a name for minds like this. They call them scanners. People whose brains naturally move across domains, absorbing patterns, extracting ideas, connecting things others never notice. And throughout history, minds like this have quietly shaped entire eras. But here's something strange. One of the most dangerous strategists in history had this exact kind of mind. His rival was considered a military genius, yet he still lost. Why? We'll come back to that. Because first you need to understand something uncomfortable about the systems we live in. Most people believe the world rewards intelligence. It doesn't. It rewards predictability. Schools reward people who stay in one lane. Companies promote specialists. Career paths push you toward one identity, one role, one narrow expertise, not always because it's better, but because it makes people easier to measure, easier to manage, and easier to replace. But what happens when someone doesn't fit that structure? History shows something interesting. Those people are often misunderstood early and extremely valuable later. But there's a trap many of them fall into. At first, learning something new is exciting. Your brain lights up. You absorb information quickly. Then something strange happens. The excitement fades. The work becomes repetitive. And suddenly your brain wants to move on, so you leave. Then the cycle repeats. Most people assume this means they lack discipline. But the real problem is something else. They leave right before reaching the most important stage of learning, the plateau. The plateau feels boring, but it's actually where real understanding begins. Because once novelty disappears, the brain stops collecting surface information and starts recognizing structure, patterns, systems, hidden mechanics. And structure is where true power lives. Think about a moment you've probably had more than once. You're sitting in a meeting, or a class, or a conversation with people who are supposed to be the experts in the room. And something feels wrong. Not obviously wrong, just off. Like the people around you are solving the visible problem while missing the actual one entirely. You can feel the connection they're not making. You can sense the pattern sitting just outside the frame of the conversation. But you say nothing, because you've learned that what you're about to say sounds like changing the subject. You weren't changing the subject. You were seeing a larger one. Neuroscience has a name for what was happening in that moment. Most people in that room were operating in what researchers call the task-positive network, the brain system built for focused, linear problem-solving. Efficient, measurable, exactly what every institution is designed to reward. But your default mode network, the system responsible for wandering, connecting, and seeing across domains, was refusing to go quiet. To the room, this looked like distraction. To a neuroscientist studying innovation, it looks like the engine behind insight, because most breakthroughs don't come from solving problems inside a single field. They come from importing solutions from somewhere else entirely. A musician recognizes patterns in business, a programmer understands ecosystems, a historian predicts economic cycles. Psychologists call this far transfer. The ability to take structural knowledge from one domain and apply it somewhere completely different. Most specialists struggle with this because their knowledge is optimized for one environment, But people who build knowledge across domains develop something unusual. They stop seeing separate systems. They start seeing the structure around the systems. Which brings us back to that strategist. His name was Sima Yi. He lived during the Three Kingdoms period in ancient China. His rival was the legendary Zhuge Liang, brilliant, a master tactician, an elite battlefield strategist. When their armies met, Zhuge Liang often won the tactical battles. To outside observers, the conclusion seemed obvious. Zhuge Liang was the superior mind, but Sima Yi wasn't focused on battles. He was studying something else entirely: agriculture, supply chains, food production timelines, soldier morale during long campaigns. Instead of attacking, he waited. Instead of chasing victory, he stretched time. Supply lines weakened, resources disappeared, morale collapsed. Zhuge Liang died during the campaign, never realizing the war had already been lost. Sima Yi didn't win because he was better at tactics. He won because he understood the system surrounding the battlefield. Zhuge Liang never knew he had lost, because Sima Yi never showed him the game he was actually playing. That's the real advantage of a mind that moves across domains. You don't just see the move in front of you, you see the structure around it. Some researchers call this the M-shaped mind. Instead of one deep specialization, you build multiple pillars of expertise over time. Each pillar requires crossing the same barrier, the plateau. Most people turn back there, but those who push through begin seeing the hidden structure of each domain they enter. And when those pillars eventually connect, insights appear that seem obvious to them and invisible to everyone else. Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room, listen quietly, and suddenly understand what's really happening? That's not luck. That's pattern recognition built across domains. The world tends to reward specialists early, but across longer time horizons, the people who connect systems often reshape entire industries. And we may be entering the moment where this becomes impossible to ignore, because artificial intelligence is the ultimate specialist. It processes information inside defined domains faster than any human alive, and it is coming for every single lane career first. But there's something machines still cannot do. They don't naturally connect ideas across unrelated fields. They don't walk into a room and sense what's actually happening beneath the surface. They don't change the game being played. They don't wait, which means the mind society spent decades trying to fix, maybe the only kind the next era actually needs. But here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Most people who recognize this will do nothing with it. They'll feel the click. They'll think about the pillar they've been abandoning, and tomorrow they'll be standing in front of the same gate, the one they always walk away from the moment it stops feeling exciting. The plateau was never the problem. Leaving was. Write it in the comments. The one pillar you keep abandoning, name it. Because the moment you name it, you stop pretending it doesn't matter. And if your brain works like this channel was built for you. Subscribe, because the next video is about something even more uncomfortable. How people who understand systems quietly control rooms without anyone realizing it.